The night air was thick with heat, the savanna alive with restless whispers of wind through brittle grass. A muffled cry broke the darkness, sharp and desperate, like the gasp of a drowning soul. Jack said, "That sound. It's close, and something's wrong." His boots pressed against dry soil as his torchlight cut jagged beams across thorny brush. The cry came again, strangled, broken, pulling him deeper into the shadows. The world seemed to hold its breath, every cricket silenced, every branch stilled. His pulse quickened, fear gripped him like iron claws. Jack muttered, "Please, hold on." Then he saw it, the impala, young and trembling, its leg caught fast in a cruel steel snare. Blood darkened the fur, the sharp edges digging deeper with each panic struggle. The animal's eyes, wide with terror, reflected his light, pleading without words. Jack whispered, "I'm here, you're not alone." But the snare was anchored deep, hidden in roots, and every attempt to move only worsened its torment. The savanna was no longer silent, it was an echo chamber of pain, urgency, and dread. Jack's breath came shallow as he crouched beside the impala, heart hammering louder than the night's silence. He said, "Easy now, I won't hurt you." The animal's flanks quivered, muscles trembling as though bracing for death. Every snap of the trap echoed like a countdown to disaster. The acrid scent of blood and iron filled the air, sharp enough to burn his throat. He touched the snare, and the impala flinched violently, eyes burning with instinctive fear. Jack whispered, "Stay still, I'll find a way." But the roots around the trap were tangled like veins of stone, holding it tight. He felt sweat slide down his temple, his mind racing for options, his fingers trembling with urgency. This wasn't a simple rescue. It was a race against blood loss, panic, and time itself. The shadows closed in tighter around them, pressing like unseen predators waiting for failure. The impala thrashed again, hooves scraping soil, sending a spray of dust into the torchlight. Jack said, "No, stop, you'll make it worse." His voice cracked between urgency and fear. He pressed his hand near the wound, not daring to touch but close enough to let the animal feel his presence. Its chest heaved in rapid bursts, breaths shallow and painful. He remembered another night, long ago, a deer caught the same way, and his failure to save it. The memory cut deeper than the snare before him. Jack muttered, "Not this time." The impala froze for a moment, eyes locking with his, trembling in fragile trust. Around them, the savanna whispered again, as though testing whether he was strong enough to face the nightmare repeating itself. The tension thickened, wrapping every second in fragile hope and brutal urgency. The steel teeth of the trap gleamed with merciless precision, biting into flesh without pity. Jack said, "I need leverage, something to pry it open." His eyes scanned the ground, searching for a tool, a branch, a stone. The night offered nothing but barren soil and cruel silence. The impala moaned softly, the sound tearing through him like a blade. He knelt lower, fingers brushing dirt, grasping at roots that crumbled in his grip. No, there has to be a way," he hissed under his breath. His torch slipped for a moment, plunging them into near darkness, before he caught it again. Shadows seemed to lean closer, mocking his helplessness. His chest tightened, doubt creeping in, threatening to drown his focus. Yet, the eyes of the impala anchored him, desperate, pleading, alive, forcing him to keep moving, keep fighting, keep hoping. The impala sagged suddenly, its strength bleeding away, body trembling as if surrendering to fate. Jack's pulse surged with panic. "No, stay with me," he pleaded, his voice breaking into the night. He slid closer, cradling its head gently, his hands sticky with sweat and dust. The animal's breaths came weak and shallow, every exhale a whisper of life fading. The stars above blurred through his tear-brimmed eyes, and for a moment, time felt brittle, on the edge of snapping. Jack whispered, "You're not dying here, not while I'm breathing." He pressed his free hand against the snare again, ignoring the sting, as metal cut into his skin. The pain anchored him, forced clarity back into his trembling mind. He wasn't just saving an impala. he was fighting the ghosts of every life he had lost before. The Impala's breathing slowed, fragile but steady, as Jack pressed his hand against its trembling flank. He whispered, "You remind me of her." His voice cracked, memories flooding in. Another animal lost years ago, a deer that slipped away before he could free it. That night had carved scars deeper than any wound, a reminder of helplessness that had followed him into every rescue since. The sight of this Impala brought it all back, the guilt, the weight, the vow never to fail again. His chest tightened as he traced the scars on his palm, proof of battles he never truly won. He muttered, "Not again, not tonight." The animal blinked weakly, a spark of fragile life shimmering in its eyes. Jack's resolve hardened. This rescue wasn't just survival, it was redemption. Saving this Impala meant saving a piece of himself, long buried beneath loss and regret. The Impala shifted weakly, its body shuddering against the cruel grip of the snare. Jack whispered, "Stay with me, you're stronger than this." He brushed dirt from its coat, his fingers trembling as fear gnawed at his calm. The scent of blood hung heavy, mixing with sweat and dust. He glanced at the trap again, rage flickering in his eyes at the cruelty of its design. His breath trembled, but his words steadied. "I won't let them take you." For a moment, he leaned close, pressing his forehead against the Impala's side, grounding himself in its fragile heartbeat. In that pulse, faint but alive, he found his anchor. He realized it wasn't only about freeing an animal. It was about protecting innocence in a world that crushed it without remorse. Jack whispered, "I owe you everything now." The Impala blinked again, as if it understood. Jack scanned the dark terrain, searching for help, but the savanna stretched endless and empty. He muttered, "I can't do this alone." Just then, a voice cut the silence. Emma, his ally, rushing through the brush, breathless and urgent. She was younger, early 30s, with sharp eyes and steady hands. "Jack, I heard the cries," she said, kneeling beside him. Relief washed over him, but his fear remained. He explained, "The snare's too deep. I can't loosen it." Emma's gaze hardened as she inspected the wound. "We'll need leverage, but time is against us." The Impala stirred weakly, its body trembling as though it understood the race unfolding around it. Jack sighed. "This feels like déjà vu." Emma placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Then this time, we changed the ending." Her words steadied him, anchoring his storm of doubt. Emma rummaged through the brush, pulling out a sturdy branch, worn smooth by weather. "This might work," she said, holding it like a weapon against despair. Jack tested its strength, his knuckles white with urgency. The Impala's breaths rattled, shallow and uneven, echoing against the soil. Jack murmured, "Hold on, we're close." His hand brushed Emma's briefly, their silent bond forged in countless rescues, unspoken but unbreakable. Emma whispered, "Don't lose yourself in the past, Jack. This isn't then." Her words struck him, piercing through the guilt that clung like shadow. He nodded, forcing air into his lungs, steadying his resolve. "We fight for this life, no matter what." Together, they moved toward the trap, two human hearts against steel cruelty, ready to gamble everything on fragile hope. The savanna felt less empty now, like even the stars were holding their breath. The Impala stirred again, eyes wide with fear, muscles twitching in restless agony. Jack steadied its head, whispering, "Trust me, I won't let you go." Emma positioned the branch, her arms trembling as she slid it beneath the cruel jaws of the snare. Jack added his strength, pushing down with raw force, sweat dripping into the soil. The metal groaned, resisting, refusing to release its victim. Jack growled, "Come on, damn you." The branch bent dangerously, threatening to snap. The Impala whimpered, its body straining against hope and despair. Emma shouted, "Don't stop, Jack." His teeth clenched, every muscle burning with the effort. The world narrowed into the sound of grinding metal and the pounding of his heart. This wasn't just a battle against steel, it was against fate itself. And Jack swore he would not lose. The branch groaned as Jack and Emma pushed harder, the snare's jaws barely shifting. Jack gritted, "It's moving, don't let go." The impala cried out, legs kicking weakly, blood streaking the soil. Emma's face strained, sweat dripping, but her grip tightened. A sudden crack split the night. The branch snapped in half, sending both of them sprawling into the dirt. Jack cursed, "Damn it." The impala thrashed violently, pain exploding in every movement. Dust choked the air, the torchlight flickering with chaos. Jack slammed his fist into the ground, rage and desperation flooding his chest. Emma gasped, catching her breath, voice tight. "We're running out of time." The metal trap had dug deeper, fresh blood glistening under the harsh light. Jack's voice shook. "If we don't find another way, we'll lose it." Silence pressed in again, heavier, as if the night itself doubted them. Emma scrambled up, dirt smearing her hands, while Jack steadied the impala's trembling body. He whispered, "Easy, you're not alone." The animal's chest heaved, each breath sharp, desperate. Emma's eyes darted toward the horizon where storm clouds gathered, faint thunder rolling closer. She muttered, "Great, a storm's coming." Jack's jaw tightened, pressure mounting as the wind picked up, rustling the dry grass like restless whispers. The snare glistened, cruel and unyielding, as if mocking their every attempt. Jack said, "We need tools, stones, metal, something stronger than wood." Emma searched the ground, frustration etched across her face. "Nothing but dirt and thorns," she spat. The impala moaned, a broken sound that pierced them both. Jack pressed his hand to its flank, whispering, "I won't lose you." But doubt clawed at his chest, louder than thunder. The first raindrops splattered against Jack's shoulders, cold and heavy. The savanna darkened further, torchlight glowing faint against the storm. Emma shouted over the wind, "We'll be cut off if it floods." Jack wiped rain from his face, teeth clenched. "Then we finish before that happens." The impala struggled again, its body slick with sweat and blood. The snare's edges cut deeper with every movement. Jack's hands shook, torn between rushing and careful precision. Emma's voice trembled with frustration. "We can't do this without tools, Jack." He met her gaze, eyes fierce. "Then we make do. We improvise." The storm crackled overhead, lightning splitting the sky in jagged bursts of white. In that fleeting light, the impala's terrified eyes shone like glass, reflecting both doom and fragile hope. Jack muttered, "I won't let nature decide this ending." Emma crouched lower, shielding the torch with her body as rain hammered down. She spotted a jagged rock, half buried near the roots, anchoring the snare. "Here," she said, thrusting it into Jack's hand. The rock was heavy, sharp, unforgiving. Jack held it, eyes narrowing with grim determination. "This will hurt, but it's all we've got." He pressed it against the snare's hinge, forcing it with raw strength. Sparks of friction glimmered as steel scraped stone, a shrill sound that made the impala shudder. Jack shouted, "Hold it steady!" Emma gripped the animal's shoulders, murmuring, it's okay," her voice breaking through the storm. The trap resisted, unmoved, defying his will. Jack's arms shook, veins straining as he poured everything into the attempt. The storm raged louder, as if nature itself wanted to drown their fight. He screamed, "Open, damn you!" The rock slipped, slicing Jack's palm, blood mixing with the rain and soil. He hissed in pain but didn't stop. Emma gasped, "You're bleeding." Jack growled, "Better me than it." His hand shook violently, crimson dripping across the trap. The impala cried out, its body jolting in terror, eyes wide as the storm flared above them. Lightning flashed, illuminating the three of them, like figures carved in desperation. Jack pressed harder, ignoring the sting as his skin tore further. "I'll bleed if I must, but I won't let this thing win." Emma's voice wavered. "Jack, you'll tear your hand apart." He ignored her, teeth gritted, every nerve screaming. The trap creaked faintly, as though taunting him with false hope. Jack muttered, "I swear I'll break you before I break." His blood ran freely, a crimson vow against steel. The trap creaked again, and for a heartbeat, Jack thought it would finally break. But then he noticed something carved into the metal. Numbers and a brand, faint under rust and blood. His breath caught. Emma. This wasn't left by accident. She leaned closer, her eyes narrowing. That's a marking. Someone placed this here deliberately. Jack's chest tightened, a surge of fury piercing through exhaustion. His voice was low, sharp. Poachers. The storm rumbled above them as though echoing the revelation. Emma's face hardened, her jaw set. This isn't just cruelty, it's a warning. They want to scare others away. Jack's fists clenched until blood seeped between his knuckles. He whispered, "This isn't just about saving it now. This is about fighting them." The Impala moaned, its fragile body reminding him of the cost of hesitation. He looked at Emma, determination blazing. "We can't walk away." Emma's eyes darted nervously toward the dark horizon, the storm masking distant sounds. She muttered, "If they're nearby, we're in danger." Jack wiped blood from his palm, his voice steady but burning with anger. "I don't care. This proves they've been setting traps for months." The Impala shuddered, its body trembling against the roots, reminding them of the urgency. Emma hissed, "Jack, we can't save the animal if they find us first." Lightning split the sky, illuminating her anxious face, her eyes full of fear but resolve. Jack crouched closer to the Impala, whispering, "I won't leave it for them to claim." Emma's lips pressed thin, torn between survival and duty. She whispered, "Then we move faster before anyone realizes." The storm closed in tighter, as though drawing a curtain of secrecy over their fight against unseen enemies. Thunder roared as Jack dug at the roots surrounding the trap, his bloody hands tearing soil apart. Emma kept the torch steady, her gaze sharp. She said, "This isn't random, Jack. They've mapped the animal paths." Jack spat dirt from his lips, fury in every word. "They're not hunters. They're executioners." The Impala's eyes rolled back briefly, its body limp with exhaustion. Panic surged through Jack's chest. He pressed his hand against its side. "Stay with me, don't give them victory." Emma crouched, her voice softer but urgent. "If we fail now, the poachers win twice. Over the Impala, and over us." Jack froze, her words hitting him like a blade. He muttered, "No, we'll turn their cruelty against them." He tightened his grip on the snare, blood mixing with rain. The storm flashed again, their faces carved in light, warriors against unseen monsters. The storm's fury battered them, but Jack's voice cut through. "Emma, they set this to send a message, but so will we." His hands worked furiously, prying roots apart, mud caking his arms. Emma steadied the Impala's trembling body, whispering comfort that mingled with the rain. She said, "Then, saving this life becomes our answer." Jack grunted, forcing the jagged rock deeper into the snare's hinge. The sound of grinding metal pierced the night like a scream. The Impala jerked weakly, pain rippling through its body. Jack shouted, "Hold on." Emma's eyes flicked again to the storm-dark horizon. "We have to hurry," she urged. "If they hear us, we won't just be rescuers, we'll be targets." Jack's face hardened, lit by a flicker of lightning. "Then let them come. We'll fight with proof of what they've done." The rain hammered down, sealing his vow. A sharp metallic snap rang out, loud enough to cut through thunder. Jack froze, breath ragged, staring at the hinge where the snare bent slightly. The Impala cried out, a sound of agony, but also of survival. Jack's eyes widened, a surge of hope piercing through exhaustion. "It's working," he gasped. Emma leaned closer, torchlight flickering wildly across the steel. But then another sound cut the storm, distant voices, faint but real. Emma's face paled. "They're here." Jack's chest clenched, torn between fear and fury. The Impala's life balanced on steel teeth, his own survival tangled in human malice. He whispered, "They'll not take this from me." Lightning split the sky again, illuminating his blood-soaked hands gripping the snare. Emma hissed, "We don't have time, Jack." His jaw tightened, a fire in his eyes, Then we finish this, no matter the cost. The voices grew louder, carried on the storm's howl, sharp and guttural. Jack's grip on the snare tightened until his knuckles whitened through blood and mud. Emma hissed, "Jack, they're almost here." He stared at the Impala, its trembling form the fragile heart of the chaos. His voice shook but burned with fire. "I won't let them claim this life." The torch flickered wildly as wind battered them, shadows of men appearing briefly through sheets of rain. The Impala cried again, weak but alive, pulling at Jack's soul. He pressed harder against the hinge with the jagged rock, ignoring the pain tearing his hand apart. Emma pulled closer, whispering urgently, "You'll die if they catch us." He looked at her, rain streaking his face like tears, and growled, "Better me than it." Lightning lit the savanna, revealing hunters closing in. Time was gone. It was now or never. The storm's roar was deafening, but above it came the harsh metallic scream of the snare. Jack shouted, "Emma, hold it steady." She pressed down on the Impala's shoulders, her arms trembling as the animal kicked weakly. Jack's bloodied hand slipped but returned, gripping with fury. His body shook under the strain, veins bulging as if the effort might tear him apart. "Come on, break," he roared, his voice lost to thunder. The Impala whimpered, its breath faint but still present, still fighting. Emma's eyes glistened, her lips trembling as she muttered, "Don't give up now." Jack slammed the rock again, sparks flashing against wet steel. The sound cut sharp and brutal, the storm itself seeming to pause for that strike. His body was on the edge of collapse, but his will burned brighter. He whispered, almost a prayer, "Not tonight, not this life." A deafening crack rang out. The hinge gave slightly, the steel bending under relentless force. Jack gasped, hope flickering alive. "It's giving," he shouted. But before relief could settle, a gunshot split the storm, echoing through the savanna. Emma flinched, eyes wide with terror. "They're firing warnings." Jack froze for a heartbeat, torn between the animal and the threat of death approaching. Another shot rang closer, whistling through branches overhead. He gritted his teeth, rage burning hotter than fear. "They won't scare me away." He pressed harder, blood streaming freely now. The Impala jerked, its cries drowning in thunder. Emma cried out, "Jack, they'll kill us." His face was lit by lightning, fierce and unyielding. "Then I'll die, saving it." His body trembled, his soul straining, the storm raging in rhythm with his fight against steel and fate. The poachers' voices cut sharper now, closer, their shadows shifting like predators in the rain. Jack pressed his shoulder against the snare, blood and mud mixing beneath him. His muscles burned with every ounce of resistance. Emma whispered frantically, "Jack, we have seconds." The Impala lay trembling, its eyes glassy but alive, trapped between death and deliverance. Jack roared, summoning strength from every scar, every loss, every memory of failure. "You're not taking this life." Lightning cracked again, illuminating his face twisted in agony, but burning with resolve. Emma's grip steadied the Impala, her tears mixing with rain as she whispered, "Please, Jack, please." The snare groaned louder, bending inch by inch. Gunfire rang again, sparks flying from a tree beside them. Jack screamed, forcing the rock with a final surge. His voice echoed against the storm. "Break!" A sharp snap cut the night. The snare broke open, metal jaws twisting free at last. The Impala collapsed, weak but no longer bound. Jack gasped, his body trembling, blood pouring from his torn palm. Emma cried out in relief, "You did it!" The Impala's eyes fluttered, breaths shallow but alive. Jack knelt beside it, exhaustion collapsing over him like the storm itself. But then voices shouted closer, flashlights cutting through rain. Emma grabbed his arm, fear etched in her soaked face. "They're here. We can't stay." Jack's gaze locked on the freed Impala, his voice raw. "It can stand. It has to." He pushed weakly at its flank, urging it toward freedom. The storm raged louder, footsteps approaching. Jack whispered fiercely, "Run. Live. The Impala trembled, gathering strength, its survival now tied to its own fragile courage. Their battle had bought a chance, but at what cost? The Impala staggered forward, its legs trembling as rain cascaded down its body. Jack leaned heavily against Emma, his strength nearly gone, his palm bleeding freely. "It's free," he whispered, voice hollow yet full of awe. Emma tightened her grip on him, guiding him back a step, her eyes fixed on the fragile creature as it struggled against exhaustion. "It's alive," she said softly, her words breaking with relief. The storm began to ease, thunder rolling away into the distance, leaving only rain tapping against the earth. Jack's chest heaved, each breath a battle, but his eyes never left the Impala. He muttered, "It just needs one more chance." The animal turned its head, locking eyes with him for a moment, a silent exchange of shared survival. Jack felt the weight lift from his soul, even as danger pressed closer in the distance. The Impala stumbled a few steps, its legs buckling, then steadied itself. Jack exhaled, his face pale but lit with pride. "It's stronger than it looks," he murmured. Emma wiped rain from her brow, her voice trembling. "So are you." The stormlight faded into softer rainfall, the savanna returning to whispers instead of roars. Jack clutched his torn hand, pain radiating through every nerve, but he didn't care. "It was worth it," he said quietly. The Impala flicked its ears, sensing the world beyond the chaos, the path ahead finally open. Emma squeezed his shoulder gently, grounding him. "You gave it back its life," she said, her voice breaking. Jack's gaze softened, a hint of peace in his tired eyes. "No," he corrected gently. "It gave me mine." The silence after thunder felt sacred, the savanna listening in quiet reverence. Jack sank to his knees, his body too weak to stand, mud caking his skin. Emma crouched beside him, concern etched across her soaked face. "You've lost too much blood," she said urgently. Jack smiled faintly, shaking his head. "I've lost worse." His eyes followed the Impala as it limped slowly toward the tall grass, rain washing blood from its leg. Each step seemed impossible, yet it pressed on, defiant in its survival. Emma pressed her hand to his wound, trying to slow the bleeding. "You can't keep doing this to yourself," she whispered. Jack's gaze never wavered. "If I don't, who will?" The Impala paused at the edge of the clearing, glancing back once more. That single look pierced him deeper than the trap ever had, a silent acknowledgement, a bond forged in suffering. Jack whispered, "Go, live for both of us." The savanna exhaled in calm as the storm faded, leaving mist rising from soaked earth. The Impala moved farther away, each step steadier, vanishing into silver sheets of rain. Emma's eyes softened, her voice hushed. "It's really going to make it." Jack leaned against her shoulder, exhaustion overwhelming him. "We did it," he whispered, disbelief and relief mingling. For a moment, everything felt still, as if the world itself paused to honor survival. Emma brushed wet hair from her face, glancing at him with quiet pride. Not everyone would have risked this. Jack's jaw tightened, his eyes heavy. Not everyone has ghosts to silence. The Impala's silhouette disappeared into the horizon, leaving only memory behind. Jack's chest rose and fell, his strength fading, but a fragile peace replaced the storm inside him. The rain slowed to a drizzle, the torch sputtering its last glow before darkness reclaimed the night. Jack closed his eyes briefly, his voice barely above a whisper. She would have been proud. Emma looked at him curiously. "Who?" He swallowed, the memory raw. "The one I couldn't save. Years ago, I swore I wouldn't fail again." Emma's face softened, realization dawning. She squeezed his arm gently. "Tonight you kept that promise." Jack opened his eyes, the weight of years lifting from them, even through pain. He looked out into the savanna, where the Impala had vanished, and felt something shift inside him. Emma whispered, "We need to move before they come." Jack nodded slowly, his voice steady despite weakness. "Yes, but at least now, it was worth it." His scars no longer felt like chains. They felt like proof of survival, for both of them. The night softened at last, the storm now only a whisper on the horizon. Jack leaned against Emma, his breath shallow but steady, his eyes fixed where the Impala had vanished. He whispered, "It's gone, but it's alive." Emma's voice trembled, touched with awe. "You gave it back its freedom." Jack shook his head faintly, mud streaking his cheek. "No, it gave me mine." The silence pressed around them, broken only by raindrops falling from leaves. The darkness no longer felt suffocating, it felt sacred, holding the weight of what they had endured. Jack's body ached, every wound screaming, but his heart finally felt lighter. Emma looked at him, her expression softening with quiet pride. "You saved it, Jack. That's enough." His lips curved in a tired, broken smile. "For once, it feels like it is." The savanna stretched into darkness, mist curling like ghosts above soaked earth. Emma helped Jack to his feet, her hand steady on his arm. "We need to move," she whispered, her tone careful but firm. Jack nodded weakly, his gaze still fixed on the horizon where the Impala had disappeared. He muttered, "It will survive." His words carried the weight of a vow fulfilled, fragile, yet unshakable. Emma's expression softened as she steadied him. "And so will you," she said, her words both a promise and a plea. Jack exhaled, his chest easing as though he could finally breathe again. The torch had burned out, leaving only the silver wash of moonlight to guide them. Together they stepped forward, their silhouettes framed against the mist. Two survivors walking from a night carved in blood and storm, carrying hope into the dawn. Jack paused once more, glancing back at the clearing where the battle had unfolded. The broken snare glistened faintly in the mud, a cruel relic of suffering. His jaw tightened, fury flashing in his tired eyes. "They'll pay for this," he whispered, his voice low and certain. Emma turned to him, her face calm despite exhaustion. "We can't fight every shadow, Jack." He shook his head, rain dripping from his hair. "No, but we can shine light where they hide." The savanna was silent, carrying his words into the dark. Emma sighed, but there was no resistance in her gaze, only trust. She squeezed his shoulder. "Then we start tomorrow." Jack gave a faint nod, the weight of vengeance tempered by the hope he carried. The Impala lived. That truth was enough to carry him through the night. For now, that was victory. The horizon began to pale, faint traces of dawn bleeding into the storm-torn sky. Jack's body trembled with every step, yet his spirit felt steadier than it had in years. Emma guided him carefully, whispering, "Almost there." He nodded, his eyes catching the first streaks of light pushing through the mist. For the first time he didn't feel chained to failure. He felt part of something greater, something worth every scar. His voice cracked but carried strength. "We don't rescue just for them. We rescue for ourselves too." Emma smiled faintly, her face glowing in the faint dawn. "And we keep going, because the world needs it." Together they walked, two shadows against the rising sun, carrying forward the weight of the night, but also its fragile gift of hope. The savanna was alive again, and so were they. At the horizon's edge, the last sound of the Impala carried faintly, a single cry, distant yet alive. Jack froze, closing his eyes as the sound echoed through him. Emma stilled beside him, watching his expression soften. He whispered, "That's the sound of hope." His voice trembled but carried a finality that wrapped the night's chaos into one heartbeat. The world seemed to pause, holding on to that cry, letting it settle into memory. Jack's scars burned less, his chest lighter than before. Emma placed her hand in his, steady and unyielding. "Then let's carry it with us," she said. He opened his eyes, the dawn reflected in them, stronger now. Together they stood, still and silent, honoring the fragile voice that had survived storm, steel, and cruelty. And as the sun broke fully across the savanna, the story ended, not in silence, but in survival.